Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our informational webinar related to the MovingWorlds Institute. My name is Mark Horshevsky. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MovingWorlds, joined by Cole Hoover, the director of our institute, Millie, who is currently joining us from Peru, and our program manager, and Alexandra, a fellow at the MovingWorlds, who's currently in our Colombia office. So we are really excited from around the world to be joining in for this webinar and tell you a little bit more about the MovingWorlds Institute. This program is really, I think, and I'm not supposed to have favorite programs, but I think really embodies the essence of what we try and work on and work towards at MovingWorlds, which is helping get expertise to the parts of the world that need it most, but providing life transformative experiences to those that give. And every year we get to interact with incredible fellows that I think, like you, are asking yourselves this very same question. How can your career make the world better? And it's really a common bond that I think unites not only the MovingWorlds team and not only our fellows, but really in large part the MovingWorlds community. Our time and our skills are the most valuable assets that we have, and the Institute provides a foundation for us to come together with other professionals, people that have already accomplished incredible things in their careers, others who are just starting out, but are all seeking to answer that question of, how can we use our time here on Earth to make a sustainable impact and contribute to a global movement for, more peaceful, just, and verdant societies. And that's really the unifying bond of the Institute. And by creating a community where we get to meet in person, interact, learn, and grow together, we're really able to explore this question to its fullest. And not only over the 6 months of the Institute, but even beyond, as we stay engaged in our global community that's, growing, really by the day. And to maybe take that from the ethereal to the real, many of you have already seen the story of Heather Watkins that's featured in this video. Heather was a really accomplished marketer working at a director level for a fast-growing firm in Silicon Valley that likely many of you have heard of. And while she really enjoyed the technical challenge of her work, she was wondering how it was contributing to the greater good. And she was on the verge of, quitting the tech sector entirely and, jumping into the nonprofit sector. And she decided to join us in the MovingWorlds Institute to explore if that was the right decision. And while she maintained her full-time job at the course of the Institute, she used that to get a better idea on what was the type of work and project that made her come alive at work. What were her skills, not just relevant to the company that she worked for, but that could be relevant to other sectors, social enterprises, nonprofits, even social good initiatives within for-profit companies, and also the public sector. And she used her institute to explore these different options, going experteering with a really inspiring organization in Tunisia called Ubongo Kids, and really using that experience to make an impact, but also answer some questions that she had about where she could best fit in. And at the end of her fellowship, she ended up not going into the nonprofit sector, but actually ended up instead starting her own consultancy called Better Impact Marketing, where now she's partnered with others and works with nonprofit and for impact organizations to scale up world positive marketing efforts. And her video does a better job of telling the story than we do, but she's just one of the many examples of people that join our fellowship with this exploration of how can I use my time and skills to make a positive impact, and where's the best place for me to do that? And, like Heather, our fellows get the opportunity to explore that and answer that question. So Cole, I'll turn the microphone over to you, and you can talk us through a little bit more about the details of how the Institute really helps us explore our career transformations.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And thanks everyone so much for being here. We love to share the stories of our past fellows because as you've probably seen on the website through videos or the blog, there's a lot of amazing dynamic individuals who come from different sectors in search of a transition towards greater impact. And so, we're really here to move you all through that impact and connect you to a community that makes it possible. But we really also wanted to give you a feel for what that looks like, because this can be whether you're transitioning in your company or jumping into a whole different sector. We know that this can be a scary and exciting and uncertain time. And so we want to provide you with as much detail as possible to get a feel for what we do. So we break down our whole experience over the 6 months, modeled after the human-centered design approach. So we start in inspiration, which is about gathering new ideas, getting exposed to new concepts, exploring themes that maybe you hadn't considered before. We then move into ideation, which is about recognizing patterns. So much of transitions or kind of evolving within your career is about starting to connect the dots. We pair you with mentors and other fellows and industry leaders that help you to start recognizing patterns that you're seeing throughout your career to help you to better leverage your skills for an impact. And finally, in the implementation stage, we do just that. And that is through your personal work, your career, and also your expertise placement, a time where you're starting to take these ideas and turn them into actions. Actions that not only are going to benefit a social enterprise during your time in the fellowship, but are going to be stories that you can tell for years to come as your career evolves. So to give you a little bit of some specifics, we really start out the whole experience centering on your purpose. We believe that any external impact you're going to have starts internally. We do that through the purpose assessment, which is the world's largest study of how people find fulfillment in their work. We use assessments like StrengthsFinder and frames like signs to explore what are your skills and strengths and how do they kind of help you to grow. And through our cohort, we will be holding each other accountable to how you can bridge your internal purpose with external impact that you want to be having throughout the 6 months. Next, we help you develop your leadership skills. And going back to building on your purpose, we have several different frameworks, whether it is an assessment and then tools that help you to become more of a purpose-driven leader, whether it's within a company, a not-for-profit, government, or elsewhere. We also connect you to some of the most innovative network leaders out there in the world who are trying to find ways to bridge gaps between sectors so really impactful work can happen. And we also equip you with the tools you need to be a cross-cultural leader. We use assessments like Culture Wizard and other tools to make sure that when you're out in the field, you are able to communicate in a way that's resonating with different communities. And also, we're giving you cross-cultural skills that you can bring back to your own corporation or organization. We further explore these ideas through case-based discussions and also critical conversations that all culminate in a capstone presentation you'll be doing at the end. We find that one of the most important things, whether it's someone transitioning like Heather from Silicon Valley as a technology marketer, or another fellow like Fernanda who left a more traditional not-for-profit background in Brazil, one of the most important ways that we help our fellows to transition into more impactful careers is building up on their understanding and their vocabulary around concepts like human-centered design, design thinking, business model generation. And we do that through weekly readings, industry leader webinars, and additional content that helps you to be more confident in using tools that can be applied across sectors to scale impact. So the next thing that we work on is having a shared vocabulary. We find that our fellows, there's people who have had great experiences. We get folks who are decades into their careers, but they're having a hard time breaking into the social impact field. And one thing we found from years and years of doing this is that there is a specific vocabulary that helps you to not only communicate your impact, but to talk with others within the field about opportunities and options for you to pursue. So we explore concepts like social enterprise, impact investing, shared value, where corporations are having a profit motive and also a purpose motive. And we'll explore all these ideas through weekly readings, community discussions in our internal social network, and through connections to industry leaders, people like the ones you can see on our mwi.movingworlds.org website, who come from a variety of sectors and explore some of these concepts with us. So one of the things that we find most important is having experiences that demonstrate how your skills can have an impact. And this is all about our transformative learning model, where it begins with goal setting and kind of setting assumptions that you want to validate throughout your time. And we believe that the best learning is experiential. So you work with our team to match with a project. You go through a process where you're communicating with a social enterprise in the field to make sure it's the right match. And once you're matched, you're going through a rigorous planning guide that helps make sure that your limited time in country with them is as impactful as possible, and also gives you an opportunity to kind of record and journal all the things that you're learning throughout the process, whether it's practicing human-centered design or connecting to impact investors or getting a better understanding about how social enterprise structures work. When you get back from your expertise experience, and this again is something that could be 2 weeks, it could be several months, our program is deeply customizable for you based on your schedule. But once you get back, we're helping you to reflect and to reintegrate, and then ultimately to turn that into a story that you can tell moving forward that demonstrates how you can have an impact. So, building on this experience, which we think is one of the most crucial parts of the whole fellowship, we also help to tell your career story. We work with our in-house social impact career coach, who has been working for years to help people, again, to connect the dots in their stories. And we offer guidance through these career coaches and our also internal mentors to help you to take the experiences you're having both in the field and within your work and in your history and turn that into a compelling capstone, which is a share out and a presentation that not only helps you reflect on your MovingWorlds Institute experience, but then turns into this object that you can use out in the community, in job interviews, within conversations with a manager at your existing work environment, to really take your career, your social impact career, to the next level. And so finally, just giving you a little bit of a feel for some of the tools that we provide for you to grow your network. MovingWorlds has been around for almost a decade, connecting social enterprises in the field with people with expertise from around the world to help solve some of these great problems that we're facing. In that time, we built up an amazing network of cross-sector mentors and industry leaders who we are helping you to build confidence around connecting with, asking for feedback, and then finding what are the inroads that will help you to land that social impact career that you're really dreaming of. The majority of jobs across the board, but specifically in the social impact field, are about who you know and who you can connect with. So we help you throughout the 6 months, paired with an accountability process to grow your network and also receive the kind of mentorship that you need. So again, this is just a little bit of a rundown of what we'll be doing together. Happy to talk more about this with folks offline. You can always get in touch with us if you have any specific questions, or feel free to chat it here and ask them throughout the webinar. So I talked a little bit about how we set a foundation. So we use a couple different assessments, whether it's the purpose assessment, which again is the largest ever study of how people find fulfillment in work. We use this to get an idea of how you show up and find purpose within your work. We also connect you with tools like Culture Wizard, which gives a whole spectrum of how different cultures show up and do work, how they value hierarchy or communication, and really just in general gives you a snapshot of how you show up in a cross-cultural work environment so you can continue to grow as a leader. So these are just some of the tools that we'll be using throughout our experience, but they're ones that we love and have found that people have gotten so much value over the past couple of years using them to reflect. We also are all about accountability. So we'll be helping you to set goals and put out assumptions that you want to validate throughout your experience. And we'll be working together online over the 6 months to start to build a community that really builds on the foundation that we set with our 3.5-day in-person intensive, with the next one coming up in Washington, D.C. So after we have our in-person time, we transition to our online community, and we'll be setting accountability relationships to make sure that the goals we're setting throughout these 6 months are goals that we can achieve. So if you can move on to the next slide, we also support this activity, providing you a structure with guides that you can use today, tomorrow, and really for years to come. And so you can't see it very well, but this just gives you a little bit of a feel for all of the different resources that we're providing you, whether it's guides to better understand how you can show up and be a global leader, how you can track the progress and the goals you're setting with your mentor, how you can be building on all the experiences you're having within the field and with what you're learning to create a meaningful capstone, and then also to plan effectively with the social enterprise you get matched with to do your expert tiering. We have dozens and dozens of resources and guides that are all in one convenient place in your own personalized checklist that we'll be working with you on throughout the 6-month experience. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mark just to talk a little bit about how we start out building this foundation of a supportive community to help you further navigate whatever change you're coming to us.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Cole. Yeah, and there is a lot of information to digest. I mean, we go through a lot in the 6 months of the Institute. And in fact, even the kickoff weekend sometimes feels like it itself is just this huge outpouring of information and self-exploration. But the common bond here is that we're as committed to your own personal growth as we are to creating a supportive community around you to help you navigate change. Here's a screenshot of another video that is also featured on our website that talks a little bit more about the actual in-person cohort kickoff. And that weekend together is really an incredible opportunity to connect, person to person with other people that are navigating change. And it is really common to hear the words of, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm uncertain, I'm thinking about taking the leap, I feel like I'm making a big jump, right? These are the words that seem to resonate with our fellows that are at the point of this big exploration, not just of career opportunities, but it's bigger than that. It's what is your purpose and how does that come alive at work? And here you can see Davide writing and reflecting on the type of skills that really make him come alive. And Davide was a director at an international consultancy, had worked on impact projects, but always from the consultant's perspective. And he used the fellowship to really explore two things. And one was first getting into the field, going to work in a small social enterprise working on information and communication technology training for youth and underemployed, and using that experience in sub-Saharan Africa to understand the realities of what it's like to work on in the field, embedded within an organization. And building on his prior impressive experience, but also on his field experience, he's actually now transitioned into working with the World Bank, helping them now as a principal economist launch a new impact investing initiative to go and support those very communities that previously capital's been too hard to get dispersed into. And, it was a big shift for him to change sectors. But as he attributes in his blog post and story and reflection to us, that actually being there in the field, even though it was for a short period of time, it gave him some of the necessary speaking points, but also certainty that his next change was moving in the right direction. And I think the combination of the experience and the supportive community to go and do something that you've wanted to do but haven't done before is really, really powerful for our fellows. And it's something that as a program team, we work really, really hard to build and to develop. So Millie, at this time, I'll hand it over to you and you can talk a little bit more about how exactly those placements work and what the process is like.
Okay, thank you so much. So regarding your social impact placement, otherwise known as an expertise project within our community, it's designed to weave all of the things that Mark and Co have talked about, your personal and your professional experience, your goals, your aspirations moving forward, as well as the Moving World Institute Global Fellowship Curriculum. And it's all designed to create this opportunity for you to apply everything that you've learned through the whole program. So what does this actually look like? The people who are going on this journey with you come from very different backgrounds. Some of them are full-time MBA students, some are full-time workers with side hustles, others are taking a professional sabbatical. So everyone has a very different capacity when it comes to working on their expertise project. And depending on your specific goals and your life schedule, you'll have an opportunity to work on 3 buckets of projects. If you go to the next slide. Here, you can see if you only have about a few weeks off from work, we recommend projects that emphasize training and coaching. If you have more time to dig in, we recommend projects that are a mixture of consulting and execution. And finally, for those of you who are on a sabbatical and really want to fully immerse yourself into an organization that you support, we recommend projects that allow you to take on a role as a core member of the local team. Of course, you're not bounded to these 3 buckets, and we encourage you to be an active participant in the project creation process to ensure that you're using your skills and your experiences in a way that effectively contributes to the local social impact ecosystem wherever you go expertising. And you may be wondering, okay, but what does an expertising project look like? What do people actually do when they go expertising? So let me raise the curtains and give you some examples. Here you can see Lisa. Lisa is a product manager at Alaria, and she cares deeply about entrepreneurship, having worked in startups, led the scaling of startups, and then gone on to create her own startup. And in doing so, Lisa came to the conclusion that she wanted to have more than just a successful business. She wanted the business that she creates to support something bigger. And in her expertising project, a goal that she had was to learn more about the social impact space and learn how social entrepreneurs are effectively weaving social impact values into their business structure and their processes. She matched with an accelerator in Kigali, Rwanda, and over the span of about 3 weeks, she helped to create 2 sales training workshops for their members and coach their entrepreneurs for a pitch event with the Bank of Kigali. And of the 16 entrepreneurs that she worked with, coach and mentor one-on-one and in a group setting, the majority of them were able to secure interest-free loans. So even within the span of about 3 weeks, the impact she made was very, very tangible. And then next, we have Jill. And Jill comes from a government and public policy background, creating and implementing communication strategies for the government sector. And for her expertising project, her goal was to explore a new professional space and put her communication skills and experience to work solving challenges that were outside of the government sector that she had worked in previously. And she matched with a social enterprise, also in Rwanda, to co-design a marketing and outreach strategy to raise local awareness surrounding the wonderful work that they do to empower women on the ground. And in addition, she also created the necessary content to support that strategy and pass on her knowledge to a local team member to carry on the work after she leaves. Because a lot of what we do at Moving Worlds and through the projects, we care deeply about sustainability and having a real impact. And a lot of that impact cannot necessarily be measured during your time on the ground, but is measured a month, a year, 5 years down the line. How well is that organization doing? What sort of legacy and knowledge transfer has taken place in that process? And then finally, we have Anish, who hails from a corporate Wall Street background as a business and finance strategist. And his ultimate goal is to return to India, where his family is from, to start his own social enterprise that supports his local community. And in preparation for this transition from the corporate sector into the startup scene, Anish sets off to on a professional sabbatical and to learn as much as he possibly could about social enterprises, the social impact space. He matched with an organization in Guatemala as a core team member, their senior cultivation coordinator. Anish has been there for 9 months now and actually recently got offered a full-time position working with them. And along the way, during those 9 months, He really dug into the social impact ecosystem there, built out workshops and led conferences connecting local social enterprises to each other, to potential investors, and a plethora of other resources to really nourish that environment where the government and the nonprofit sectors in Guatemala have failed to address certain local problems. He and his social enterprises on the ground are trying to cultivate the next generation of business-minded professionals to design solutions that put the community and the people impacted at the heart of everything. It's been such a wonderful pleasure and inspiration to follow these expertise on their impact journey. And I can't wait to connect with everyone here watching, people who are going to apply, to see how we, the Moving Worlds community and the Institute, can help support you on your own impact journey. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Cole next.
Millie, thank you. That was a great walkthrough of the projects, and I think, and Millie touched on this story a little bit as an example with Anish or with Lisa, that when people work through their expertise placements, the next thing to follow is often career clarity. Sometimes the clarity is a decision to go back to school. Sometimes it's to start your own social enterprise, or as I shared in the story of Heather earlier, sometimes it's to start your own consultancy. But the goal and what the Institute does is it helps give you a forum to have this open and honest exploration with our team, with your coach, and with your cohort, to really make sure that you are taking tangible steps. And, here we share the story of Myrna, who spoke at one of our alumni webinars in our last call for application. And, Myrna, to almost use her words verbatim, on paper, she had, a dream job. She worked in communications for the United Nations, and she had ongoing opportunities to continue there, but she missed this element because she hadn't spent time in the field with the communities that her work was supposed to be touching. And so she used her expertise experience for that. And in the way she got to work with cooperatives, she got to work with farmers, small shareholder farmers. And from there really awakened always a side passion of hers, which was biodiversity and how do you protect not only farmer incomes and livelihoods, but how do you also do that to protect the natural biodiversity of places? And for her, that meant actually leaving the United Nations and going to work at another organization more focused in that sector, as well as pursue other secondary education options and tertiary education options, to further explore in that sector. And, like Heather, like Davide, what Myrna realized was that by going on an experience with very intentional goal setting, with ongoing guidance to global leaders, by expanding her own network, and then to go through a reflection process, it helped to answer these questions that had maybe been lurking for a long time, but now there was a place and a forum for those to take shape and crystallize next steps. So Cole, I'll hand it over to you now to talk a little bit more about how we use some of our networks to help answer questions for our fellows.
Yeah, and I think for us, as a part of this transformative learning model, we know that experience is so important, whether it's Myrna being out in the field in Uganda, getting to kind of ignite these passions around biodiversity and agriculture in a way that she hadn't been able to back in her office, or whether it's others exploring business models that they've maybe never experienced before. We think that one of the most important ways to build on these experiences is through mentorship with people who have been out there and done it. So whether, in Myrna's case, if it's the need of getting connected to someone who works with rural African supply chains all the time, like Arthur, who's global coffee director and traceability at Starbucks, or if it's someone who's wanting to learn more about corporate philanthropy and how you could be a corporate entrepreneur, connecting with someone like Akhtar Badshah, who worked with Microsoft for about a decade, leading their giving and philanthropic strategies, or a social entrepreneur like Sachi, who's the co-founder of an innovative rural social enterprise in India called Upaya Social Ventures. We have mentors and industry leaders who, through our program, you'll get a chance to connect with, who are from a variety of sectors and backgrounds, because we think that having that additional layer of support of people who've actually been there and done it can help you to make that transition in a more meaningful and context relevant way.
And so here I'll briefly share the story of Fernanda, pictured here in the middle, not the very middle in the purplish shirt, but on the side here with the pink polo. Fernanda came from higher education marketing in Brazil and joined the fellowship to really explore more field-based, earlier educational interventions as a way to improve education for those not only in metropolitan centers. And she actually used her time. She connected with a mentor, someone who happened to be a previous expertier who had also expertiered across educational systems in India, Honduras, and in Central America, to look for opportunities where she could use her passion for education and her skills for marketing, but to support teachers in new ways. And she used that experience very intentionally. And even though she was based in the field, was using her fellowship to network. Reaching out to others cold, saying, I'm a MovingWorlds Institute fellow. I think the work that you're doing is really interesting. Can we have time for a virtual coffee? She used our own network to connect with others, ended up actually entering into a new contractor agreement, working on a global education organization called Level Up Village that helps connect different classrooms via web-based technologies to interact with each other. Share curriculum, but also share learnings with students around the world. And, I think Fernanda really embodied a lot of the fellowship in that, we will guide a lot of next steps, but there's an element of using this as a way to build your own network, to reach out, to find a mentor that will help you answer questions about what's next, to push you out of your comfort zone, to meet new people and to interact with new organizations that you never even knew existed, but are solving a problem that you care deeply about. And in the process, giving you some of the inside connections that you need in order to actually be the bridge to what you want to do next. And so Cole, I'll pass it over to you, but would encourage everybody to look for Fernanda's blog post on our blog. I think, she really embodies that, get out there and take the leap and meet new people spirit that the fellowship really gives you an excuse and actually a bit of a strong nudge to get out there and to do it and to meet the people and the organizations that will help you on your next steps.
Sweet. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, and as Mark said, there's tons of stories of our alumni that you can read about just to get a better feel for who are some of the people who come and participate and succeed within the fellowship. To give you a little bit of a peek, I know we got a lot of information here, but we wanted to just give you a little bit of an insight into who are our fellows. Our fellows are people who come from a variety of sectors and levels within their companies. I think one of the things that unifies them is they are typically people 7 to 15 years in their career who have demonstrated leadership within their companies or organizations or divisions, and they're looking for that next step. They've succeeded in a lot of the traditional ways, but they're looking for more. So we've had fellows coming from all over the world. We've had fellows from 18 different countries, represented from all the different continents and places where people are trying to have an impact. We've had folks who are, a variety of career levels from which they're coming. We've had directors like Davide. We've had executives who have been running parts of a company or an organization for years. Executives like Leanne, who transitioned out of her role as the executive director of a not-for-profit in Canada into new opportunities. We've had people who have been individual contributors and mid-level managers, all trying to find what's the next step within their career. And some of the reasons that people join is we have a lot of folks who are doing a career change. They're jumping out into a place that can kind of feel unknown. Like Mark and Millie had mentioned, it can be a little bit scary to be in transition. But also one of the things that we hear every single time that we get together for one of our in-person intensives is that these people look around the room and they say like, wow, I found my people. This is one of the first times in a while that I've felt like I'm among peers and among people who are looking for and prioritizing the same things. But another great part of our diversity is we also have folks who are staying within their companies and are just trying to have more and more of an impact. This is also a great place for social entrepreneurs, folks who are looking either for a promotion towards more impact-driven work or a way to reshape their role within their own company that they love and they are committed to. So it's really a diversity of perspectives that we get. Throughout the MovingWorlds Institute, we've mostly had people, a little bit over half, coming from the for-profit world, but we've also had folks from government, we've had people in the nonprofit and educational fields, and this is one of the things that we really look for, is that we think that this kind of diversity leads to really, really deep and meaningful learning that will ignite your career for impact. So I'll turn it back to Mark to talk a little bit about what all these different people kind of have in common, and that's getting a chance to join a community that helps you to make this easier.
Yeah, and I think, this is actually to kind of rephrase what was told to us once, that, taking the leap is scary, and we see a lot of people do that. But what we realize is that when you build community with other people doing the same, it becomes fun, it becomes energizing, it becomes enriching. And both on our virtual community where you can connect with also past fellows and expertise, but also for your in-person where you really get to bond with this close-knit group of people that are pursuing the same overall vision that you are, becomes really an opportunity to have fun and get energy in what is oftentimes maybe a scary or as we're told sometimes, to quote one of our last fellows, that at home everybody thought I was crazy, thinking I could find a place where I could create an impact and create a living, and then here I'm surrounded by a room of people that believe and are working towards the same thing that I am. And the fellowship is just such a unique program because it actually starts with that team building, and then you have the opportunity to be supported by this just amazing group of people over the course of the fellowship. And then once the fellowship ends, you get to stay engaged, again, either as a mentor or with our virtual community where you can continue to build, connect, grow, and lead. So Cole, pass it over to you to talk more about program dates and specifics and next steps.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you all so much for tuning in. I know this is a lot of information, but we want to give people a feel for what the program is like and also what's the community that you're going to be joining. But know that over the next couple weeks, we're available to hop on a one-on-one call. You can message us on the website to schedule a time, and we're really looking forward to making sure that you are as prepared as possible to apply. So to give a little bit of a rundown for what we've got coming up, we're in the application cycle right now, specifically focused on our cohort that's going to be starting this fall in the US, in Washington, D.C. So applications are open until June 30th. So if you have questions over the next couple of weeks, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Starting out at the beginning of next year, and keeping in mind that we do applications on a rolling basis. So although we have a majority of folks applying to join us in Washington, D.C. right now, you can also put in an application for next year, just in case you need a little bit more time to plan. So we'll start the year in Mexico City. We'll then have a spring kickoff in Seattle, Washington in the US. We'll, in the summer, head to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to do our summer kickoff, and then we will finish off the year in the fall in San Francisco in the US. So again, applications right now for both the Washington, D.C. cohort that's starting in September, but then also on a rolling basis if you're interested in applying to any of these others. And within your application, there's also a spot where you can indicate which one you're most interested in. And so building on the logistics, just to give you a little bit of a feel, for the MovingWorlds Institute, we structure this program to add value to you in many different ways. And so your tuition, which you can see right there at the top for the 6 months of programming, covers a lot of things. It covers your kickoff weekend. So this is this 3.5-day intensive immersion. Once you arrive in country or in the city that you're going to be having your immersive, this covers your speakers, meals, lodging, everything while you're in country, and also a couple fun surprises. After that, this gives you access to our custom matchmaking team, full access to our internal social network, and then also to our alumni community. So after you finish your Moving Worlds Institute Fellowship, you become an alumni of the program, and you have continued access to a community online of change makers, of industry leaders, of mentors. So not only is this about your 6-month time as a Moving Worlds Institute Fellow, but this is really an investment that continues to pay out over years and years as you're connected to this community. So during the 6 months, this also gives you access to, these assessments that I mentioned, like the Imperative Purpose Assessment, Strengths Finder, Culture Wizard, mentorship with amazing leaders like you can see on our website, access to our internal social impact coaches, and to speakers from all around the world. So this just gives you a little bit of feel about what are some of the things you get for the tuition that you pay to be a part of this program. But also wanted to note that we also have scholarships and payment plans available. We want to make this as possible for you as we can. So we offer some flexible options that you can inquire about after you submit your application. And then we also have a lot of folks who go the employer-sponsored route. So we'll work with you to make a case to your manager, your boss, your company, for them to fund this really impactful experience for you if you're planning on staying within your company. And so just to kick it over to Millie to give a little bit of advice of who we're looking for, because like I said, we celebrate a huge amount of diversity in our programs, but just wanted to give Millie an opportunity to talk a little bit about who are the folks that we're looking for.
All right, thank you so much, Cole. And just so you guys know, I'm seeing some questions coming through the Q&A as well as like the chat box. And if you guys watching right now have any questions, feel free to start typing them in, and we'll try to cover as many of them as possible at the end of this. Now, application advice. If you're considering applying, or if you know someone who will be a good fit for the fellowship, here are some general tips. What exactly are we looking for in an applicant? A common question that we get asked at the beginning of every application cycle is, do I have to have experience within the social impact space to apply? And the short answer is no. Our fellowship is unique in that we care about your potential and about your aspirations. So regardless of your background, if you're committed to aligning your career with social impact moving forward, and you commit to being an engaged and active member of your cohort, you already have our attention. Our goal is to build bridges between different sectors to encourage and cultivate diverse, creative, holistic approaches to problem solving, like Cole and Mark mentioned earlier. So as a result, our cohort often comprises of people who span the gambit of professional experiences, from policymakers and lawyers to business strategists, engineers, software developers, etc. And some are more junior in their career, and others are more senior, like Mark and Cole mentioned earlier. And wherever you are in that spectrum, when you are applying to the fellowship, emphasize your impact aspiration. What sort of an impact do you want to make and why? And then what skills and experiences can you bring to the table to support those aspirations? Along the way, we strongly encourage you to reach out to our team if you have any questions about the fellowship and whether it's right for you. At the end of the day, the fellowship, it's about the professionals and the people like you who make the program successful. And so we realize that you're more than what's listed on your LinkedIn account, on your resume. Ping us, schedule time to talk with us, and let us know what your story is. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Cole to talk a little bit more about next steps and important dates to keep in mind.
Sweet. Thanks so much, Millie. So as we wrap up again, we really invite any questions that you have, but we just wanted to take a moment to make sure that everyone is aware of what the next steps are. So first off, apply. And if you have any questions that you feel need to be answered before you are confident enough to apply, reach out to us. You can schedule a one-on-one time with me or another member of the team to make sure that those questions are answered and you have all the info you need. After you apply, decisions will be coming out the week of July 15th, so it's a pretty quick turnaround. And again, these are rolling acceptances, so be sure to apply early and get in your information so we have time to have a conversation with you. If you are accepted, we have our immersive weekend in DC for the fall launch cohort that starts the night of August 31st with a dinner and then goes through midday on September 3rd. This is an amazing full weekend of programming where you'll meet industry leaders, connect with other fellows, and start setting goals that you'll have an opportunity to achieve throughout the 6 months. After the in-person immersive, we'll be getting into field placements. Again, these happen on your schedule. They can 2 weeks, they can be several months. We work with you to be as flexible as possible. We have fellows who come from all different kinds of backgrounds and all different kinds of some have other different dependencies, and we make it as easy as possible for you to get the experience you want. The program then completes with a virtual send-off in February to cap off the 6 months, and that's basically it. So we'd love to take the time to not only say thank you, but also to open it up to any questions that you may have at this point.
Okay, thank you so much, Cole. And so one of the first questions that came in, and you kind of covered this a little bit earlier, so if you could just summarize it more succinctly. And the question is, do you have participants that are already in the sector or have an MBA or an advanced degree? If so, what do they typically gain from the program?
Yeah, so happy to answer that. So I'd say that we absolutely have had people who are social entrepreneurs. We've had many people with MBAs, advanced degrees, PhDs. For us, it's about not only the experiential component of going out and working with a social enterprise in the field and being able to tell that story, but also getting connected to a network of practitioners, maybe beyond the individual work that you've done in the past. But also just tying that all into a portfolio of skills and resources that we think are going to elevate your impact, whether that's human-centered design or getting a better understanding of shared value methodologies or how design thinking can help you to become a more purpose-driven leader. We've had people coming from a variety of different backgrounds and also many who've already had experiences in social impact. We've gotten a ton of value out of the program and used it as a way to transition to more and more impact throughout their career.
All right, thank you so much, Cole. And the next question comes in regarding location. And so specifically, like, does it matter which country the applicant is applying from? We see DC, Seattle, San Francisco, and Kuala Lumpur as options. Do applicants need to be in those general areas to apply?
No, not at all. You know, we offer those different launch sites to make it as accessible to a diverse community of change makers from across the world. But you can go to any one that you want. If there's one that's closer to where you live that makes it more convenient, that's great. But if you're also looking to travel or you have other opportunities close to one of our launch sites, we welcome you to apply to that one as well. We do everything we can to make this both as accessible and as diverse as possible.
Okay, thank you, Cole. Next question is surrounding the expertarian project, the social impact placements in the field. And so there are, I'm bucketing a number of questions here, but generally speaking, you know, being that the range of the projects can be anywhere between 2 weeks to as long as you would like to be in the field for, how do you ensure that there is adequate planning to make sure that the project is effective, deliverables are very clear at the end of the day, and that the expertise are making a substantial impact in the field?
Millie, I might even bounce that question back to you there.
Okay, sure. So I help to, if you guys do decide to be a part of the Institute program, and you will at some point meet me again, and I help with the matching process at MovingWorlds. We have a number of workshops as well as like planning guide in place to help support you through that process. So once you've determined how long you will be going into the field for, from that on right there, we go through a series of workshops where we identify, well, what are your skill sets, what's reasonable for you to achieve within that particular time frame, and then we have a planning guide where we invite you and the host organization to come together and co-create what that process looks like, because every single organization has a different set of needs, a different set of resources on the ground. Things look very different when you're talking to someone vaguely, and then when you have an expertise with a specific skill set, a specific background, then it's much easier to flesh out what the deliverables could look like within those different time periods. So this is how we ensure that projects on the ground are sustainable, they are effective. And if you have any further questions about this, feel free to
Yeah, and maybe just a quick layer on there. Just a month or two ago, we published an article in the Stanford Social Innovation Review that specifically highlights the approach of how we ensure skilled volunteers land with impact, which actually highlights some of that data and methodology at a maybe slightly more academic level, but I think pretty interesting. And by the way, I also really like whoever asked that question, because I think oftentimes amidst this, the element that your expertise can be catalytic in the field is a message that's sometimes lost. So thank you to whoever asked that question. I liked it a lot.
So we have a few more questions. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, make sure we wrap up. And if we don't get a chance to get to your questions today, like Cole and Mark mentioned, feel free to ping us online, schedule a time to talk with any of us. So this question here, I think you guys covered it a little bit earlier, but it goes to, in terms of applying for the fellowship and the different cohorts. So Cole, you mentioned that it's possible to apply to a cohort beyond the DC one. Is it also possible to be accepted in advance and put down your deposit for those future cohorts?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, it's a rolling application process. And we do have people who will reserve their spot in advance. One thing I would say is that the cohorts are small. We keep them intentionally small because we think that over a certain amount of people, it makes it harder to learn and meaningfully connect. And so we've got a bit of a formula there. So if you are interested in a future cohort, but are worried that maybe it'll fill up and you won't have a chance to participate at that time, we absolutely offer opportunities to reserve a spot in advance.
Okay. Thank you, Cole. So that is the last question for the session today. Feel free to send any questions to us later on after the session is over. And with that, I'll kick it over to Mark for any last closing statements.
Perfect. Yeah, I just really want to thank everybody and reemphasize that the team, me, us all, we're here to help answer questions, to help make connections, and to be useful to you any way that we can. And we know that navigating change is sometimes scary. Sometimes it feels maybe a little lonely, but know that there's this global community here looking for ways that we can best support you on your quest to let your light shine and to find your purpose in the process. So really grateful that you spent your time with us in viewing this webinar, and we look forward to seeing your application. And of course, if you have any questions, there's a couple different ways to get a hold of us, of it including our emails at the bottom of the slide. So with that, Cole, I'll let you say final thank you, and then I'll close this out.
Yeah, thank you all so much. It's such a deep honor to get to work with so many change makers from across the world and bringing in their own stories and building on those stories. Yeah, we feel really grateful to be here with you and so excited to talk to you soon and to see your applications. So, see you soon.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Have a great one.